hybrids. This is a tassel fern. This is an autumn fern. It lives way through the winter, and it comes up late, and it's beautiful red. See the fronds just beginning to begin? Okay, back up, here we go. There's a Christmas fern right in front of you. They used to give those in Christmas time because they still, like in the snow, they stick out, they don't die. And there's a marginal wood fern. You know, the marginal thing is designated for the fact that the soray is built under the leaf at the margin of the leaf. So, thus, a marginal wood fern.
There's Danny.
Yeah. All right, did you see the ostrich fern yet? The ostrich fern looks like an ostrich tail, and it's, you know, a beautiful fern. Ferns like cool, damp weather. There's a green stem lady fern right next to it.
How do you know it's a lady fern?
Well, I'll tell you about it. So those hats that, the hats that ladies put in the, the back of their heads in the, 1900s, 20s, whatever. What do I know? All right. Shit, there's so much to see here. If you look at this cluster, it's actually two ferns in one. It's a Christmas fern and a Tennessee polypodium, similar to a Christmas fern. Polypodiums evolved almost practically a billion years after the more swampy ferns. Their leaves are more broader, and they're able to sustain themselves under drier conditions.
Fascinating. Let's
go up to the top.
Let's show. I'll follow you.
Wait, on the way, maybe you should look at these bleeding hearts are about to bleed their hearts out, and the bleeding hearts is also part of their reproductive cycle, and they go great in a fern garden.
So does Danny.
Danny's in those, see those broadleaf ferns? Those are so-called sensitive bead ferns that Danny just came out of. The red-stemmed lady fern. So here we are on the top. It took me for a while to understand polypodiums. The swampier ferns that were more fernier had to be at lower proximity to more water, because that's when the earth was a little more swampier. But now the earth is drying up just like every old girl. Sorry about that. But so what we do is we plant the polypodiums in the top of the fern garden, and we put the swampier ones, the real ferny fern things, fancy ferns, intermediate wood ferns. These are swamp ferns, which are related to cinnamon ferns. The rail fern. And look at this, the Japanese painted hybrid fern. And look at that tiny little frond that's coming up. They're so much more delicate, but those Japanese, you gotta hand it to them. And don't underestimate, the English and the Japanese honestly were the first people that really had their shit together with gardening, I think. I mean, aside from agricultural purposes. So, and you look up at all those polypodiums. Let's look at some polypodiums. This is the common polypody, or polypodium. And then there's the Appalachian polypodies, which is, as you see, as it goes down its stem, the leaves get much broader and wider towards the base of the stem. Oh yes, and there's Danny again. This cat is a total wild predator. She was born behind a hardware store here in Old Grimes, Connecticut. And what do we know? What she knows, we don't know. We're trying to figure that out. And I'm sorry for diverting and going to another tangent, but we're back into the fern garden. Notice the moss. Moss existed before ferns. And you see, they can't get that high there. There's little tiny little fronds because moss does not have a vascular system. So the ferns were the first plants to have a vascular system to rise above. Today's ferns are pretty low because they live, next to these super plants that seeded plants, flowering plants, and et cetera, fruit-bearing plants. But the point is, ferns still exist, and it takes 2 years to make a fern. You have to have, under the belly of a fern, you'll have a soray building structure. And let's go back to the cinnamon fern. Come on. there and check that out. Watch this Japanese painted fern right here. Let's see this fit. You know, most ferns, the story building structures are under the leaf, but some ferns, like the cinnamon fern, they have designated central fronds that hold all the sorae. And as you can see, these special fronds are designed to build sorae structures which build spores. So the spores actually, you know, ripen and emit, you know, spores, and they turn into zygotes, and that's 1 year. So the next year, that zygote has a root. It's a little plant and it lives, but when the rainstorm's ripe and ready, get it, sperm from one side of that damn root sac swims and, you know, inseminates eggs on the other side. You see, plants and animals were way more closer to each other during the Devonian, and ferns are totally emblematic of this.
Wow.
All right, goodbye. This is enough for now.